Why Wrigley now?
Well, I think we're probably overdue in terms of being at Wrigley. I mean, look, the Ricketts family, the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois made a tremendous investment, not just in the ballpark, but the area around it. And I think it's be a fantastic venue for our All-Star celebration.
Why did it take so long?
You know, there's tremendous competition for All-Star games, and, you know, frankly, there were cities that had been even longer than Chicago in terms of having a game. We had some new stadiums that came online, and, you know, it's just a product of lining up all of the, you know, hotels and venues that need to be available for an All-Star game.
It sounded like there was some security issues, hurdles that needed to be.
Yeah, I think the perimeter security program was kind of the last issue that needed to be resolved, and, you know, hats off to the state of Illinois and the city for working with the Cubs to get it done.
What's the contingency plan if there is some kind of work stoppage or something?
Look, my contingency plan is to make an agreement with the players and play the 27th season.
How are things impacted you since that story got out last week with your confrontation with the Phillies?
Look, you know, I don't talk about those player meetings. Let me say this. I think more has been made out of this than needs to be made out of it. You know, Bryce expressed his views at the end of the meeting. We shook hands and went our separate ways. Just not all that significant.
But is it any sort of illustration of the divide between the league and players?
It was an individual picking a particular way to express himself, and I don't think you need to make more out of that than that.
There seems to be a real effort by Major League Baseball to promote the young players in this game. Mm-hmm. There seems to be a lot of them. What are your thoughts in that area?
Look, I think promoting our players is at the core of what we do. We've worked very hard to create a progression to the major leagues, starting with the combine, the draft, additional coverage in minor league baseball, to make sure that when players get to the big leagues, people recognize who they are and they can make the most out of their careers.
When you look at the 8 years that this took, obviously security was a breakthrough. What other breakthroughs were there along the way?
I think security was really the only one that I would characterize as a breakthrough. Beyond that, it's really just a question, a big city like Chicago with a lot going on, if there's other big events in the city, we may not have the hotel space or whatever that was needed to be available to make it work. It is you got to remember, it's a competitive process. There are a lot of people that want these games, and it's working through that competition also can take some time.
Wrigley is pretty unique with the street opening for the home run derby and all that. How did they security for that? How did they plan on that?
You got to get the Cubs, past my level of detail to tell you the truth. You just have to talk to the Cubs about that.
Can you just explain, from your point of view, why you are optimistic that the 26 CBA would not drag so far into and jeopardize this?
Look, you know what? I came in-house in 1998. We haven't had a work stoppage that affected a season since that time. 3 of those deals, I was the chief negotiator. 2 of them, I was the commissioner. That's a pretty good record, and, I think we can do it again.
I mean, it feels like a lot of fans are somewhat resigned that there might be games impacted. How do you feel that from fans?
I think it is natural that when you get to the end of a collective bargaining agreement, people who are glass half filled people have trepidation about what's going to happen. I'm optimistic that we'll find a way to make a deal.
What are the other places in Chicago that are going to hold, the draft, other parts of All-Star Week?
We're not in a position where we're going to disclose venues yet.